part 2 of this is going to be getting our Flash thing ready. Flash where we're going to have images blending into each other or sliding over each other or tumbling or something cool like that. We're going to put it in the middle of the page. So the first thing to do would be to go back to Photoshop and remember how big our Flash movie is going to be. And it's this. I've got my slice selection tool. Double clicking it, it's going to give me the size that I need. 624 times 341. So let me do 2 new files, one in Photoshop and one in Flash, which are exactly that size. Let's do the Flash one first. So in Flash, let's go File, New, and don't take a template, take General, and the first thing that's there, ActionScript 3, go OK. And I guess the next thing you're going to want to do is set up your Flash environment so it's just right. I don't know where that came from, I don't want that. You're going to want your tools on the left, just one column. You'll want your timeline as wide as it can be, so for now I'm going to drag this down, and that's fine there. And then you're going to want, you don't need project, you need those two. So let's have library and properties. I'm sliding up with the tab and releasing there, so they're both in the same place. And I'm not going to release there, otherwise it would go wide across the screen. Just there should be fine, and I'm going to make it maximized down to there. And this timeline is going to have a number of layers, but for now we'll just leave it like that. Right, so we need to change this size to be exactly the size of our slice here. 624, right here. 624, and you can still see it there, for 341. 341. Alright, and now what we're going to do, so our Flash is ready to go. Now what we're going to do is make a new Photoshop file to make a bunch of images exactly that size. So new, I'm going to do it right here. So pixels is what we want, and it is 624 by, and I notice I am being absolutely sure, 341. Better be sure now rather than later. It'll be harder to fix then. So there we go. So we'll make a bunch of images, 3 or 4, that are exactly this size. And it's much easier to do this in Photoshop than it would be to try to do that back in Flash. So then when we're ready, we'll move these images from Photoshop into Flash. So again, let's think of our size. So we'll want larger than. That'll be a good category. And they can be a lot larger, but it just makes it harder to work with. But and they're all pretty big, but I'm just going to take one even though it is fairly large. So we're going to copy it into Photoshop to make it exactly the right size. And like I said, way too big, so I'm going to zoom out, mine is Command T, and holding Shift, give myself something that looks just about right. And I guess that's good. Enter, and that's ready to go. Now from here, I guess the easiest thing would be Command A, Command C. It is exactly the right size, back over into Flash. And we could just Command V. It'll take a while to import. And I don't need to position or anything because I need to save this as a symbol. So it doesn't matter where it pasted. I'm just going to Control click on it and convert to symbol. And we'll call it can't think of anything better to call it right now than that, so that's good for now. And the thing is, we don't need this on the stage right now. We just need it in the library, and it's there. So I can delete it from the stage, and I'll repeat this process, and I'll fast forward through having done it until I have 3 or 4 images like this. And I'll pause here briefly. I can use exactly the same file. I just paste in here. I don't need to worry about that layer. I mean, I can delete it, or I can hide it, or whatever, it doesn't matter, but I'm only working with this one now anyway. So back to my Command T, holding Shift, and so on. All right, and so that is my 4th. I'm going to finally convert it to symbol. And now I better get myself organized over in my library. It's starting to get a little bit cluttered, and if it's a little bit cluttered now, it's going to be more later. So let's make a couple of folders and call them appropriately. Bitmaps are just the kinds of images that they are. So holding Command to go through and select my bitmaps. And the same thing then for my slideshow. I can hold Shift since they're all next to each other. They go into a folder which I shall call Symbols. And if I didn't say before, we need symbols because symbols will be able to tween nicely, better than bitmaps will. So we'll have things fade in and fade out. A slideshow with these images fading in and fading out into each other. Instead of 24 frames per second, I'm going to go to 30 to make it easy to appreciate what I'm doing here. So 30 frames will be 1 second. 60 frames will be 2 seconds. Let's see, the first time through, the first slide through is going to be one that is looped. And so we're going to loop, let's just go 30 seconds. Let's have it up there permanently for 30 seconds. So I'm going to drag it in, make sure that it is aligned perfectly by seeing those dotted lines. And I'm going to keep it up for 30 frames or 1 second, Fn F6. And then over the next second, click on the 60, Fn F6 to put the keyframe. Over the next 30 then, it's going to have its alpha go from 100 to 0. So we click on frame 30, and in the properties, we want to see the properties of the image, not just the properties of the frame. So we, on frame 30, click on the image and switch to alpha. And the alpha at 30 is going to be 100, but by the time it gets to 60, the alpha is going to be 0. So if we put a classic tween on that by control clicking on it, then we can see it completely, and then it fades out. So as it's fading out, we're going to have another image. So we'll call it 2 or something like that. We're going to have it fade in. So it starts to be there at all, even though it will be invisible at frame 30. So Fn F6. And I'm going to hide my other layer for now. So on 30, drag in the second one. Make sure it's also perfectly positioned. And it's going to fade in from here to here. So we don't have a keyframe there yet. We have that little rectangle, but not the keyframe. So we click on it, Fn F6. So here, click on the image. Its alpha will be 0 all the way up to 100. Again, every time I get to click back on the image. So as now we can put that first one back. As the first one fades away, the second one fades in. And I didn't put the classic tween there yet. Control, click, classic tween. So now you can see it. One fades out and the other fades in. And it's going to stay that way for another second. So to 90, 30 frames. Fn F6. And here I'm running out of room with my timeline, so I'm going to go to small frames. So it just stays there. That one stays there, and then it starts to fade away to 120, Fn F6, and I can click and fade it to 0, and classic tween it. I'm going pretty quickly here, but it's the same sort of stuff. So it stays up there, and then it fades away, and as it fades away, new layer, slideshow 3. Slideshow 1. You get the idea. Whatever. You don't have to be consistent with spellings there as long as you know which is which. So at this point, the third one comes in. So Fn F6. It stays. Oh, I got to put it there first. Okay, it stays Fn F6. And it continues to stay, but it fades out. Click Fn F6. So this one fades in. Fades in from 0 to 100. So here, 0 to here. Looks like it's already 100. And it stays 100, so it's fine there. So this is the tween. Okay, they're mixing, and it stays. And I've got the one more, but I'll stop there. Is that going to be? But it needs to fade out as the other one fades in. So I need this one back again. This is the tricky part at the end. So at the end, this one needs to come back as this one fades away. Well, let's let this one fade away first of all. So it's going to fade away over 30, takes to 180, FNF6. I'm going to fade it away. There it is. Between it as it's fading away. So as it's fading away, the one that we began with is fading in. So we need to bring it back. So we need to go to that first one, click FNF6, and then click FNF6, 0 to 100. It's there. You're just going to click on it. Okay, and then it'll be at 100 again. And let's classic tween it. I should see when I play it that all three fade nicely between each. So finally then what I'm going to do is I'm going to export. So I'm going to File, Export, Movie. And as always, go back to where I saved my stuff, be by date modified. There it is. And I should make a new folder for all my flash work. So here we go, Flash, Create, and I can call this Fading Out, because I'm going to do two more. But that's the fading in and out as an SWF, save. So if you want to check out either of the two other options for doing this kind of a slideshow or sliding or tumbling thing, then go for it. If not, you can use this one.